I'm done with the SIG P365X macro. So I really wanted to like the macro, and I still do because I love the way this thing feels in my hand. From the first time I picked it up at my local shop months ago, this felt so good in the hand, right? It just released. I went down to my local shop because it looked really cool. I was impressed by the capacity and the feature set, and I put it in my hand and I'm like, this feels amazing. And then when I put the larger back strap on here after I bought it, it felt even better. Shooting it felt amazing. I was like, this is a great shooter. This feels great in the hand. This is gonna be my carry gun for the foreseeable future. Now, of course, a lot of people want to say I'm a SIG hater. I just hate the macro. I'm just a Glock fan, whatever. And it's not true. Like I said, I wanted to like this pistol, and I've invested well over $1,000 with the pistol, magazine, holsters, all of that into this platform, but I don't want it anymore. I'm done with it because of what I've experienced and my experiences with it. Now, these are only my experiences. You might have had way better experiences. The macro might be amazing for you, but to me, it's a pile of shit. So let's talk about why. Well, first off, we have the finish. The finish is just so bad. It is awful on the sights, on the slide, the magazine, for God's sake. This magazine is just a carry magazine. It's had one full set of ammo put through it, so 17 rounds, just to test function. I always test all my carry mags, but I don't put a lot of wear through them because they're carry mags. And the finish on the front of this magazine has completely eroded just from being carried. There's rust on here just from being carried. Rust on the slide. Rust in my FCU just from being carried. This thing was not, used in the rain. This thing wasn't found at the bottom of the ocean of the Titanic. It was just a carry gun for a couple months, and this thing is in terrible condition. And people are gonna say, oh, you didn't clean it. If you cleaned it, it'd be fine. No, I did clean it. I shot this pistol regularly. I've put a ton of rounds through it because I wanted to test it and see if it's a good handgun. So I put a lot of rounds through it, and every time I'd shoot it, because I'm still carrying it, or I was still carrying it, I'd clean it. So don't give me that you just need to clean it thing. And if you say I have to oil my slide like every day or whatever to keep this thing from rusting, then you can screw right off, because if a gun needs to be oiled every single day for the slide not to rust, that's a crappy finish and that's a crappy gun. Hands down, completely, that's it. You can defend it all you want, you can say SIG's amazing all you want, but if you have to maintain your gun like it's a museum piece, then that's just stupid.
That belongs in a museum!
Now, another thing, and I saw this recently when I was cleaning it, because I'm either gonna sell it or throw it in the trash or whatever, but I wanted to give it one last clean if I am gonna be selling it to another individual, and I discovered that there's a gouge that has started forming on the base of the barrel. Not like just some wear, like an actual gouge. And speaking to some other friends, they say, yeah, this is normal for the 365s. This is normal for a gouge to appear on a gun? Like, that's not normal, that's awful. And that alone has just really made me be concerned about things. Then there's videos from other individuals like Tactical Advisor who had an issue with the trigger on a 365 XL. Now, I know people might say, well, that's an isolated incident, but if the gun can get in such a bad condition where you have to shake the gun and hold the trigger down for the gun to fire, I think that means there's a flawed design, right? Why is that even happening? Why are all these issues happening with SIG products? And that's the thing, not only with the 365 in the past, but now it seems like the 365 might be having some issues. The 320 is a whole other thing. I mean, that's basically a castration device at this point. I just can't stand to point a SIG at my genitals all day long when I know now that SIG, by witness accounts, by tons of people saying, yep, guns have just been going off in the holsters. And yeah, it's supposedly just the 320 series, but they're actually more similar than you think. There is some differences, but I'd rather not point any SIG product down there. Now, another huge issue I have with this is the cost. It's $800. And considering I'm getting 2 magazines, which are $60 each, another ridiculous cost, $800, this pistol's not worth it. Maybe if it was 600 bucks, but with such a shitty finish, which you're not getting that shitty finish out of other brands of $600 or even less, you'll get a better finish. I think High Point probably has a better finish than this. So why am I then spending this much money when the finish is so bad? And one of the features of the pistol, the compensator, doesn't actually do as much as you think. Now, this is my Glock 19X with the Agency Arms Sage Dynamics compensator. When I pull back the slide, the compensator stays in place. It continues the function. So when the gun would cycle, as soon as the shot breaks, the slide starts traveling to the rear, the compensator continues to do its thing throughout the entire cycling process and as you shoot. However, on something like the macros compensator, as soon as the slide starts to cycle, the compensator no longer is effective. It's completely blocked by the barrel, And there's no longer anything in the realm where those escaping gases are to direct that anymore. Only for a split second is it directing those gases, versus a traditionally compensated gun and a traditional compensator, or even a ported gun where the ported barrel remains out here. This will actually continue to reduce recoil to mitigate gases, while the macro does it for far less time and is far less effective. However, one thing that does happen, because there is no barrel here, and yet the hot gases are hitting the slide, is this slide gets really hot really fast. Maybe 3-4 magazines in, this gun starts to get really hot. So if you want to have some good extensive training with the macro, your thumb, when you have a nice good thumbs forward grip, is going to start really feeling the heat shooting this handgun. And so if it actually was effective and it actually mitigated recoil, I'd be like, that's a good trade-off. But considering it doesn't do a whole lot, I don't think it's worth it. And you might say, how do you know it doesn't do a whole lot? Well, from the obvious of what I just showed to you, recently I took my buddy's 365 slide, the short slide, put it on the macro frame. They are modular, I guess that's cool. And I shot it, and it shot almost exactly the same. I compared it to the macro slide, and I could notice almost no difference. The real thing that makes the macro easier to shoot and control is a longer grip, because this in reality is like a duty length grip. It's about the same length and size as this Glock 19X, right? Like I'm looking at about the same length grip here, right? It's not a whole lot shorter. It is slimmer, and so that does help with concealment. I'm not saying you can't conceal carry this gun. You can conceal carry a Glock 34. I've done it plenty of times. What I'm saying is, this is where the ability to really control recoil comes from. It's like a Glock 45 or something. You have a short slide and a longer frame, so I get a full purchase on with my hand on the gun, more leverage to control more recoil. It's not this little tiny, these two little cuts that are only effective for like a split second that are actually making this gun easier to shoot, and I found this out when I put a standard 365 slide on it. So you can go and watch my previous macro videos to see some of the issues I've spoken about, highlighted a little more. But ultimately, I just don't like this thing. I don't like this thing, and I don't like SIG currently, at least SIG's handguns, right? The 320 is almost verifiably unsafe at this point. I think there's like 400 plaintiffs now in the lawsuit against SIG of guns going off in their holster. And you just have a really questionable finish, which to me just shows, okay, if the finish is this bad, what else is bad? And the fact that there's rust in the FCU, not just on the externals, the fact there's rust on the internals, that's concerning, right? Because ultimately you could argue it's just a tool, rust on the outside, who cares? Although rust is corrosive, it's not just some holster wear, it's actual rust. But the fact that the internals are rusting, the fact that the finish is coming off the magazines and the magazines are rusting this fast, because remember, I've had this pistol since, I think it came out, what, like September, October time? Yeah, I think September it came out. So it's not been out that long, it's only January. So 5 months, and this pistol is already going to shit. So at the end of the day, guys, if your macro still works for you, keep using it, right? As long as it hasn't, had any issues and it keeps on functioning, then keep using it. I'm not saying you gotta go throw it in the trash, but I'm done with mine. And if someone asked me, hey, I'm looking for a handgun, who do you recommend? I wouldn't recommend SIG. And I know people are gonna say, well, you're just saying that because you're a Glock fan. No, I would recommend Smith & Wesson, FN, Walther, tons of other brands before I'd recommend SIG. And not just because I don't like SIG, it's because I don't trust SIG. I don't have an issue with the company. I like some of their other products. I like some of their rifle products that they're coming out with, but their handguns currently, especially their striker-fired handguns, it is not the quality that you used to be seeing out of SIG. I don't know if it's the military contracts. I don't know if it's how fast they've grown domestically. I don't know what it is, but for some reason or another, the proper attention is not being put to these pistols to get the proper quality and to get what your money's worth is. So for the reasons of the finish, the reasons of just general issues of SIG, and the fact that it's overpriced and they're trying to put some gimmick like these slide cuts and tell you it's a compensator, I'm just done with SIG and I'm done with the macro. So if this video is helpful to you in realizing whether or not you actually want to purchase the macro, or whether you want to keep the macro, or whatever, or you just enjoyed watching the video, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you're a massive SIG fanboy, if you love the macro and I just committed the ultimate sin because I crapped on SIG and the macro, well, there's a dislike button for a reason. Otherwise, guys, go in those comments. Show me your experiences with the SIG, right? This is just my experiences with the macro and what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing. But maybe you've had a different experience, whether it's positive or negative, and I'd like to hear that down in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, I'm creating new videos weekly and releasing them every Saturday. Subscribe and stay tuned.